My family's had the bridal business for 28 years. My grandfather actually started it. It was called Mimi's Fabric and Fancies back in the day. I think it was in '92. So they had material and patterns and notions, and it was a sewing store, really. And then they started making wedding dresses, and then that kind of took off, and then later that really just kind of exploded. Just, I think nationally, weddings just became a lot more big than they used to be. So then they moved just strictly into bridal and tuxedos and everything. So, I mean, even before I could drive, I was working there. My papa would just slip me some cash, like, you're doing good. I felt like a babysitter. Then I was old enough to actually have a job, worked there. And when I moved away, I think I was like, I'm gonna go have my own life, do my own thing. I'm close enough to home, but I'm not here where I've been my entire life. So leaving was so good for me. I met some of my best friends. We're still friends and had some amazing life experiences. Growing up working, in business, I thought I would kind of go that route, but I have always loved kids. And so I thought, well, maybe I could at least start that path and, see what I think about it. So I went to Jones, then went to Southern and did their teaching program and just fell in love with it. Just could not wait to graduate. I knew exactly where I wanted a job. So I'm from Jones County, and I wanted to be in a small town area. So I thought, I'm gonna graduate, find a small town, teach there, and have the same experience that I did growing up, because I did love school and everything that came along with it. So I graduated, got a job immediately teaching first grade, and was just surrounded by the best teachers that were so supportive, showed me the ropes, because you don't learn everything in school that you do with experience in the classroom. So they equipped me, and I got started, and then eventually moved into second grade, and then some more specific areas with ESL, and I did that for 9 years. When I started out, I really did. I felt like, my goal as a teacher, like, I'm here to help you succeed in education. Like, I want you to read well. I want you to write well. I want you to be able to, understand social situations, and you be kind to your neighbor. That was my goal. So I think having freedom to teach those things is what we're there for. It would be difficult as a first-year teacher, at least, to remember all the things I needed to do perfectly, or as perfect as I could, and then grow off of that. So I expected some difficulty, but not, to just be overwhelmed. I thought, I'm gonna work hard, get year one under my belt, and then replicate what was good. In my head, I have these visions of like, okay, if they're in first grade, like, we're learning to read, we're learning to write. These are like the basics. And so how can I make all of this fun so that it actually works? So then we get into the classroom. I specifically remember at one specific school, I get there, and immediately they just give me stacks of boxes and books. And they said, these are the programs that you teach for first grade. And so part of me thought, okay, well, that sounds like really structured and good, so I have a guideline of what to do. But what I found in the classroom is that was priority. It's like, we have a list of what you have to teach, and then there's a test on this day. So you have to have all of these things done by this date to prove to us that your students are ready. And so, of course, I followed that plan. But in the moment, it took up so much instructional time that there was no time for me to take them outside, do a science lesson, or bring in an artist to help us, make those connections. And I was like, okay, well, this is not exactly what I expected, but I can't not please my administration, so I'm gonna stick with this and move forward. And it was so fast paced. I thought, wow, at the end of the week, I would look back and think, did they learn anything? Like, are they gonna remember anything that we taught? Because I taught lesson, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, so that we could test on Friday. But half of my class is still kind of foggy, like I can see it. I know that they don't have it, but next week I have to move on to this lesson, or we're not on track with their plan for the 9 weeks. And so immediately I just hit a wall of like, well, maybe that's not what teaching is. Maybe I can't replicate it. When I moved to a bigger school that was more rigorous and it was more about numbers, I felt like freedom was just ripped out from under me. They talk about it, like, we want you to be creative and have freedom and do these things and, really meet your students. But with the list of things we had to complete successfully and show how we got there, it just eliminated any area for freedom and creativity. It was just like, this is what you have to do, get it done, because we're gonna come check on it. And so with administration, I felt like we weren't trusted. It's like the expectation was here, And so we say, great, we're gonna get there. But it's almost like they would peek in or try to catch us like we weren't doing anything right. And I just thought, the expectation is perfection. We're getting as close as we can to get everything done, but there's just no way that it can happen. And I always wish that they would come into the rooms more so that we felt more comfortable with our principal, or they could see like, wow, this is a lot. I don't know, it just made you kind of think like, whatever happened? Like, what did I do to not be trusted? Because I feel like we all, even with students, you believe what they say until they've given you a reason to think like, okay, maybe he's not being completely honest with me. And same goes for teachers. I mean, we went into it because we love it and we want to help students. The data is what pushed me out of the classroom. The level of just micromanaged data, it absolutely blew my mind. Everything is driven by data. It's like I don't want to speak for every, administrator, but most of the time we don't feel that they're interested in this kid's story and why he's here and not here, because they compare them on a chart and say, wow, like your class is really low compared to this person's class. I'm like, well, have you met like 8 of my kids that don't have families, that has no one to help them with homework? Like where they're at is really good. Like they're doing a good job. I felt like an accountant, like crunching numbers, analyzing papers, and making sure everything was so organized that if anyone critiqued me, I would come across as, I have everything together, my kids are successful. If they're not, I've got an entire binder showing you what I've done to try to catch them up. And legally, I've had their parents sign off in meetings of what I can and can't do. So in that regard, everything looked great, but everything else was not being done. The things that I truly went into teaching for. And I just thought, I didn't come into this to go home every night and think, like, have my kids learned anything? And I just thought, where have we lost the focus? Can this child read the questions on the test? So that he can take the test. That's what I'm worried about. Has he grown enough to know how to direct independently? You could just see it on their faces. Like, even if I tried to introduce something new, like with writing, you could almost just see because we had just finished math and now we got to do writing. So put your stuff up, get your other stuff out. We've got 25 minutes. Let's see what we can get done before we have to go to PE this afternoon. And they just were tired. Come into the year and it's time for a test. Of course, some of them grow, but we've tested so much throughout the year. Not only like the reading test, but on the computer. By May, they're just kind of over it. They've taken probably 9 tests by now that we've told them this is so important. Like, if y'all do a good job, we're gonna have a reward tomorrow because you're trying so hard. Like, just please try your best. We're just like pleading with them because we know their performance determines how good of teachers we are. And the kids, after a while, are just kind of like, oh yeah, it's the most important test ever. Again, but I'm like, no, this one really counts. This is in May. Like, you have to pass this test because you've got to go to 3rd grade. But at that time, they're exhausted, and they've taken so many tests, they're just clicking. I mean, of course, some of them are very focused, but others that are maybe struggling, they're thinking, school's almost over. This is my last test, thank goodness. And they're just clicking. And I'm thinking, your score was higher back in January, and now it's May. And they don't think that you can read, and at that point, they're pushed on to the next grade, and the next teacher has to do even more documenting. So it's just a cycle. I would find myself just at night laying there thinking, like, I just feel so unfulfilled. I just feel so behind every day. I feel so in a fog, and this is just not how my life should be. I remember one day I was in Flowood, and it just kind of hit me like, there's something else I can do. Like, I can go work with my family. It is truly what I love. I've got more flexibility with my schedule. I get to be with my family. I do get to fulfill people's dreams every single day where there's not someone on my shoulder, so it's kind of like my passion for people is still there, just in a totally different setting. So the decision was easy in the regard of I'm going to move out of education. I think just because it was solidified time after time after time. So the sad part was just saying goodbye to my friends and the kids, because teacher friends become like family. If you had asked me back in the day, I'd be like, no, like, I've been there my whole life. My sister's gonna take that over. I'll always help with the store, but it is not where I'm gonna be. And now I just can't imagine not being there. So I get to meet, excited brides and help them feel beautiful, and then I get to meet their families and walk them through the process, and then when it's all over, it's like a celebration, and that's what it should be with school. You get them through the year, they've grown, you celebrate at the end, and you should feel fulfilled. So thankful I get to be with my mom, my Mimi, and the girls that I work with they're like my family now, so couldn't be happier.